Well, this is Baruch Fleischman here, your Lyft manager, and I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel just right now. And we're going to learn this book, The Ultimate Connection with God, the 7-Step Guide to Jewish Spirituality. It's being a heavy piece right now. One of the things that I really like about Rabbi Mimran's book is that it has very short chapters, but some of them are really loaded to the extent that it's something to think about a little bit more. Let's look over here and see. This is a piece which calls the Kabbalist Rav Gekhtilia or Gekhtilia. Let me read it again. Rav Gekhtilia and Rav Chaim Vital. Okay, Rav Chaim Vital, I know. Rav Gekhtilia, I don't know that name, so we're going to learn. He writes like this in Shari Kedusha. This is Rabbi Chaim Vital. A person should close their eyes and detach their thoughts from all worldly things, as if his soul has left him, like one who has died and no longer feels anything. Then he should intensify his desire to meditate on the higher worlds and attach himself there with the roots of his soul and the higher lights. Now, let me read this again. Of course, you understand that he's saying that a person has to be able to rid himself of his thoughts, empty himself. So Rabbi Mimran spent a long time in this book speaking about the necessity to quiet the ego mind that goes inside of us all the time. It's very difficult to do, but you do it by doing it little by little. You keep trying. Then he should intensify his desire to meditate on the higher worlds and attach himself there with the roots of his soul and the higher lights. So once a person has a clear mind, then he would be able to direct that clarity, I guess he's saying, towards finding the roots to the higher worlds and attach himself there with the roots of his own soul. And then he says another concept called the higher lights. He should imagine as if his soul has left his body and risen up above, and picture the higher worlds as if he is standing in them. Whoa. Now, Rabbi Mimran used to say to me, he tried different techniques with me, and he used to say to me that could you imagine yourself sitting right now at your table or listening in your car, wherever you're listening to this, and then imagine you're being at the same time way, way up, high up above that, and see like a satellite view and an airplane view and then a smaller, a closer view, whatever, and see yourself sitting there or standing there or walking or doing whatever. Just watch yourself. So he said that's one of the things he said, but here he says, and picture the higher worlds. After that, you picture the higher world as if he's standing in them, that you're in a very, very high place. Now, this is all in your imagination. The general concept is to purify himself or herself from all physicality to the utmost degree. Remove the physicality of your life and concentrate on one. He said to me, look at yourself down below, and then you realize that you're up above. And look what is up above you, raising to the heights. Removing all thoughts from his mind and imagining himself, it should be, completely attached to the higher worlds, as if you're not in this world at all anymore. Now that's a goal. Now let's go back to this name. Rav Gekhtilia in his Sefer Shari Or, and Rav Chaim Vital in Shari Kedusha, both write similar traditions passed down to them from earlier sources. Now I don't know the dates. I don't know. Rabbi Chaim Vital lived in the 1600s. Am I going to get this right, or is it 1500s? I think it's the early 1600s. Think. 1555? I don't know. There were 2 generations after the expulsion from Spain. So I just don't have those dates the way I should. But at any rate, let's go on. So he lived, let's say, 400 or 500 years ago. This is going back from before that. Both write similar traditions passed down to them from earlier sources. They write that a person must concentrate so as to elevate the 10 sephiros. We're at the bottom, each one of them above it. So each one to the one above it, and each constantly going up, starting from Malchus, going to Yesod, and imagine climbing this ladder until he reaches the infinite being, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. He then draws illumination downwards to them. What is to them? To the lower spheros, the spheros below the level of the imagination of what the Ein Sof Baruch Hu could be. To the very lowest level, and brings it back down here. Through this individual, then light descends to the spherot, and they rejoice. They then radiate with the light transmitted to them to the root of the individual's soul, where it is bound to them in a measure appropriate for it. Now, some of this should be read again, so I'll read it one more time. Through this thought that you will reach up to the top, to actually reaching for the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, then you take that light, whatever understanding or whatever, imagination, because you talk about imagination here, whichever you could imagine at that higher level, and bring it back down. The light then descends to the Sphirot, and they rejoice. So the Sphirot is at the other 9 Spheros below, or whatever we would say, the lower Spheros, goes all the way down, and there's joy all the way down. They then radiate with the light transmitted to them, and they start radiating for this light to the root of the individual soul, and it goes right into the soul of the person himself. That is a piece of godliness, where it is bound to them in a measure appropriate for it. I'm not sure what appropriate for it means, but I guess we're appropriate, lead out the word for it. The individual then must concentrate his thoughts to bring down the light of that influx from level to level. So it's the same, a similar idea, but here now he's talking about this light actually inside of you, the man down below, which I'm reading, and I'm putting this pencil at different places. I'm trying to follow it. Until it reaches the intelligent soul in his body, until the mind, the man's body itself is, it reaches there. From there, it reaches his vital soul and its faculty of imagination. So in other words, it starts to form up, because within us, in the higher levels, there really is no form, but your imagination, which is down here on earth, is feeling it. Here, these concepts are depicted as a physical image through the imaginative faculty, the faculty of imagination. So therefore, images can form, because in the lower worlds where we are, physicality rules everything. So therefore, we have physical imagination. The individual then understands them as if he literally had seen them with his eyes, as they are in his imagination, and this is true everywhere. Sometimes the light that descends is depicted in the individual's imaginative faculty in the form of an angel speaking to him. Sometimes he feels it's like that he's getting a direct message from a spiritual being, which we call an angel. He sees it or he hears its voice, sensing it one of the 5 spiritual senses. In other words, he could feel it he feels it as well. Some vibrations, a vibe from it, in his imaginative faculty. From this level, now it's in the mind. It is transferred to its external aspect. This appears in the 5 external senses, which are also in the vital soul, as is well known. The individual then sees, hears, smells, and speaks literally with his physical senses. In other words, the words themselves are coming out through the man. Now, if they're words or letters or the images that he's saying are actually coming out of the person. Regarding this, it is written, the Spirit, which is the Ruach of God, spoke in me, and his word was on my tongue. It's like a manifestation of the vibrations that are coming from up above, if I should say, call it vibrations. The light thus becomes physical, so that it can be detected with the physical senses. Sometimes, however, a prophecy is only detected by the 5 spiritual senses in the imaginative faculty. Sometimes, however, he says, after we get through all of that and words come out and feelings come out, and in other places, the rabbis speak of how the trembling of these people, that the vibrations that were going on inside of them during this process. But it says sometimes, however, a prophecy is only detected by the 5 spiritual senses in the imaginative faculty. In other words, it's only a part of our imaginations. All this can take place when the imaginative faculty is completely divested of all mundane thought, and what you were worried about, what you're going to eat tomorrow for supper, or what you're going to do, that's won't bring you to this place. From that point onwards, a person can receive information from a higher source than himself. He says, imagine the soul is like a very long branch with its root attached to the tree and reaching to man's physical body. When man yearns to ascend to this root, the soul becomes like a transmission line, right? Because we have plugged in that which is up above into ourselves and into that process. And it's like a line of transmission. We're connected. An antenna bringing information from the root. The process is very much like that of a person grasping one end of a branch with his hands and shaking it with all his strength. The entire tree must then also shake. This is Baruch Fleischman, the final word from Rabbi Mimran. A person must concentrate so as to elevate the 10 spherotes, each one to the one above it, until he reaches the infinite being, the Ein Sof. I said the Ein Sof Baruch Hu.